So I dove into the schedule a little bit this morning because Leah Vann has a piece in The Advocate where she does a bit of an FCC preview. Like if you just want to go get a paragraph on each team, it's a very fun, great read. But every like you can't help but start to look at this baseball season and not be blown away by what the SEC is bringing to bear this year. 9 teams in the top 25. And as shocking as who's in the top 25, Jake, are some of the teams who aren't in the top 25 as well as, okay, so you got number 1 LSU, number 2 Tennessee, 4 Ole Miss, 5 Texas A&M, 7 Florida, 8 Arkansas, 10 Vanderbilt, 20 Alabama, 23 South Carolina. So 9 in the top 25, 7 in the top 10. So like Vandy is the 7th ranked team.
Think about that though.
In the SEC and is 10th in the country.
Like if there was a preseason magazine like there is for every other sport for baseball, it'd be like Vanderbilt 7th in the SEC, but 10th in the country.
Middle of the pack.
Wait, what?
Middle of the pack, and yet in the top, how many teams play baseball in the actual rankings? Like it's like hundreds, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So middle of
much
the
higher
pack
than football, obviously.
in the 14-team conference, but literally in the top 7% or whatever. When you look at the hundreds of teams, it boggles the mind. And what boggles my mind, Jake, so those 9 teams don't even include Mississippi State, who just won a national championship 2 years ago and brought in one of the best transfer classes in the entire country. It doesn't even include Auburn, who has Auburn been Omaha back-to-back years, or is it 2 of 3 years? I know they won last year. It's 2 of 3 years. A baseball program that has it. So it is, and oh, by the way, LSU plays 7 of those 9 ranked teams and Mississippi State and Auburn in this schedule. It's I've never seen in any sport ever, Jake, the amount of concentration of power that we are seeing in the SEC in baseball right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see something similar maybe in other sports. Like you'll have 3 in the top 10 maybe in football. Like what's going on right now in the Big 12 in basketball. Like it's not 7 of the top 10. They've got a lot of teams in the top 25, and they're very competitive, and you can win and lose on any given night in the Big 12 in basketball. But just as far as top-heavy power, I can't really ever think of a time that we've had it like this. I'm sure somebody's like, wait a minute, just like 2 years ago you had it. It might be. But when you're talking about 7 of the top 10 from the same conference, and then I think you make an even better point, T-Bob, who's not included in this, who potentially could be very soon in a top 15 with a couple of wins. And so it does feel like one of those years where the SEC is going to continue to thrive. Stanford and Wake Forest are 2 teams that are right there at 2 and 6, I think, in the latest top 25s that are going to try to see if they can break in the cool crowd that the SEC has created there. And Wake Forest has a hell of a staff, so they might be able to. But it feels like you're going to have 4 SEC teams in Omaha type year.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just I think it's a sign of a few things. I think it's a sign of just I think first and foremost it's a sign of the culture, right? There is no place in the country that has the buy-in on college baseball than does the South. Like a lot of these SEC footprints don't have major league teams to cheer for, right? So the baseball that you get to bring your kids to, that you make these bonds with. And really, Jake, it's all been since the creation of the SEC network. Like if you want to really trace back, how did this thing start to get so juiced up? At least I should say this is my opinion. This is my read on the situation. I'm not like citing any work here or anything, but I just think about, Jake, when suddenly when you suddenly have the ability to, you don't have to go to the game, but you can still watch it on TV very easily. You can get with the neighbors, get with your friends, whatever the case may be. You've seen over the last few years viewership going up and up and up, live game attendance going up and up and up, and it culminates in some incredible scenes coming out of all the various stadiums around the SEC over the last few years. Like you've seen a bit of a cultural zeitgeist around College World Series time where the entire country kind of starts to take notice. But right now, it's mainly just the South taking notice, and what it has led to is all the investment financially, emotionally, has led to, by far, the best college league being played. And it's almost, in a lot of ways, it is almost like a little bit of it's like your own little farm system, as even the MLB is starting to change a bit in that they like a good, proven college prospect product. And you got to stay for 3 years. which is crazy for the sport, right? Because if you get one of these great guys, they can't go to. You get Dylan Cruz for 3 years. It's not baseball where he leaves after one. So it is really amazing to watch the sport grow as it has in this league specifically. And I don't really need more. Like, I'm cool with having this concentration of power because you're in there, so you have a rooting interest. I don't care how much the rest of the country does or doesn't care.
So you're, to your point, 2014 was the year the SEC network launched, and since then the SEC has won 5 titles. You had Vanderbilt in 14, you had Florida in 17, you had Vanderbilt in 19, no champion because of COVID in 20, Mississippi State in 21, Ole Miss in 22. You've also had 4 runner-ups since 2014 as well out of the SEC. Vanderbilt in 15, LSU in 17, Arkansas in 18, Vanderbilt in 21.
So you're basically Vanderbilt. Geez, chill. One team you do avoid on the schedule this year. So hell yeah, you don't have to play Vandy.
You avoid Florida as well, right?
Yep, you don't have to play Florida or Vandy.
Right,
so that's
we were
nice.
trying to get a trip with Doring. If it was in Gainesville or if it was in Baton Rouge, we were going to try to make a deal out of
jungle.
It. But they don't play each other.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're telling me is basically since the creation of the SEC network, you take the SEC or the field.
Yeah.
And it'll come down to the championship, and it'll basically be the SEC or the field, or in the LSU Florida year, both.
Yeah. This is no longer like when I was growing up, and look, if you grew up in Louisiana and you're my age, like you've had a passion for college baseball because LSU in 91 and 93, 96, 97, 2000, I mean, they were just winning championships all over the place. But, like, there's no longer Pepperdine in 92. There's no longer Cal State Fullerton in 95, USC in 98. Cal State did it at 2004. Fresno State did it. Still can't believe Fresno State won in 2008. Like, you used to have some schools out west, and with the Long Beach Polys and all those schools in there, UC Irvine.
Jay Johnson got damn close at Arizona.
Yeah,
he was probably the last one to get. Close.
And they had at USD they had some great teams as well, but you had some small schools out west because there was a real desire to be good in baseball for them. And to your point, like these teams here in the Southeast, they didn't have a passion like LSU did. Like, not everybody did.
Yeah, no.
But now that has completely changed. Like, you're not going to see those small little schools, California schools out west, go play for national championships anymore. Like, I don't even know that you'll have a Coastal Carolina, and that wasn't that long ago. That was 2016. But with the resources, I mean, all these new stadiums popping up everywhere across the SEC in baseball.
And NIL.
The NIL deal. And I think Kendall Rogers said it perfectly
the
the other day when he was telling us that, it doesn't take the 6-7 figure deal in baseball. He said, you give a baseball player $40,000, that's life-changing for them.
Cover a scholarship.
Because they're not on scholarship. And I'm like, look, there's 1,000 LSU fans that have a business that would do that in a heartbeat for LSU baseball. There's more. There's baseball fans over football fans here.
Or 10 baseball players in $50K, right? Like, the economics are such shake that you're absolutely right. And look, LSU was kind of ahead of the curve on the tops front, using that to their advantage. Of course, Vandy has stuff like the Anchor Down Fund. Well, now everybody has that. If you can drive investment from your business community into baseball, you can pay your players. So all of a sudden, you get this even. That's why, like even just through pre-NIL, even the economic commitment to baseball, Jake, was paying dividends kind of in, kind of through osmosis in a lot of ways. Now it's direct. Now, because of the buy-in, everybody cares about the emotion, the money. Now you can directly benefit, and you're going to get. Okay, so that's all a lot of talking about how we got here in terms of SC. Coming up next, let's just look at some of the schedule because it's pretty mind-blowing if you haven't seen it yet. And all I know is Jay Johnson and his squad better be ready to go, okay? Because there ain't no half-stepping into conference play. We'll break it down next here on Off the Bench. Let's get through about the first month, right? Because it's all tune-up. Even though there is some interest in there. You're going to start with Western Michigan. That's whatever. Then you go to the Round Rock Classic. And if nothing else, like there's one really good game in here, but if nothing else, Jake, some interesting matchups is in the Round Rock Classic. You will play Kansas State, Iowa, Sam Houston State, and Texas.
Will Iowa score more points on the diamond than the gridiron?
I mean, so.
Did I steal that from you?
No. That's a better joke than I had. I had written a sport Brian Ferentz is probably much more comfortable in from a scoring perspective. So our heads went to the exact same place, right? Low scoring, baseball, Brian Ferentz, joke.
Yes.
But it's
only a
very
joke for us, not Hawkeye fans.
It is very funny to think about Iowa baseball. I don't know. I just Big Ten baseball in general, especially here early in the year.
How many times have we heard? How many times the start of the season? Whoever LSU is playing, this is actually a cold weather team. They haven't even practiced outside yet.
Fair.
Every year.
No, it is not practicing outside season, or it's almost not practicing.
They practiced once outside, and that was in Baton Rouge when they took pregame batting practice.
So Texas is going to be on Tuesday, though. That's going to be very interesting.
At Texas, correct?
Matchup. I'm not entirely sure. Actually,
I think it is.
Is the Round Rock Classic all in Austin, or is this a different thing because it's during the midweek and it's after the Round Rock?
I thought
Classic?
they played. Yeah, I thought it was a game that was solely at Texas.
Okay, that makes sense because it is in the midweek. I wasn't sure if it was rolled in Round Rock. So whatever. So Kansas State, Iowa, Houston State, Texas, and then look, honestly, after that, you got a couple more weeks of whatever. It's like Butler or some school out of Connecticut. I actually might be.
Gordon Hayward ain't walking through that door.
No. Also, neither is
Thad Matta?
No, the coach, Brad Stevens.
There you go.
Brad Stevens ain't walking through that door. And then conference play begins. And this is where it gets a bit insane, y'all, as the road. I've never quite seen anything like it. So you were going to start with a road trip to Texas A&M, who all the experts believe is probably the biggest threat to LSU out of the West, right? Even though the conference has the defending national champ, the team that won the national championship 2 years ago, and Arkansas, still Texas A&M is viewed as second in the West to LSU right now, where you're going to start on the road at A&M. They returned pretty much their entire Omaha team from last season. Okay, don't worry. The next week you get to return home, and you get Arkansas, who's coming off finishing third at Omaha. And then, actually, Arkansas's got a really good first series as well. Arkansas's going to open the season, Jake, with Texas. Little Arkansas. So we get a little insight there to maybe the quality of both of those teams. Okay, so after you go on the road to number 5 A&M, at home against number 8 Arkansas, I guess who you have next? Tennessee at home, 1v2. Then at South Carolina, who's in the top 25, and who Kendall Rogers just told us believes that they could be their kind of dark horse team. So really think about it. In the first 3 weeks, you play on the road at preseason 5, then you get number 8 at home, and then you get number 2 at home, and then it's at 23. So you better be ready to go immediately, Jake. There ain't going to be, like I said, there's no half-stepping, there's no tinkering. Like, you better be coming out of this pre-conference play portion of the season fully figured out because you have some very impactful games here early on.
That is what it is. Like, that's going to be a part of the SEC, and you avoid 2 of them, right? You avoid Florida and Vanderbilt. So, I mean, it could be even worse. And LSU's not going to be the only team that goes through this. I mean, there's going to be every team on this list is going to have a portion of their schedule. They're like, man, how are we going to make it on to the other side? And the thing about, and you know this, our listeners know this about college baseball, that's completely different than college football. Like, college football scheduling is more important because there's just the room for error. It's just so small.
Yeah.
You lose 2 games sometimes, unless you're, 2007 national champ. You're not going to win a championship, right? And so, like that, you just, like, there's no room for, like, an off day. There's no room to not have your A game. Well, in college baseball, you can still lose 2 series, 3 series, find a way, get hot at the right time, get to a regional, and then you're in Omaha.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's going to be some pains, even with a great team, even maybe with the best team. And you're going to have to figure out how to navigate those situations. You're going to have to figure out how to navigate and win series and grind out a Sunday victory to make sure you get 2 of 3 and also, like, be peaking at the right time. Like, Tennessee looked unbeatable last year, right? And then they didn't get there. They didn't even get close to getting there, right? So it's all about, too, like, playing your best baseball towards the back end as well and working gradually to get to that point.
So then, the from that perspective, the schedule does actually set up kind of nice. Because, so granted, it's so challenging in the beginning. Maybe you fall short, maybe you struggle a little bit. As long as you can kind of keep your head at 500 or right above 500, it does get a little bit easier. So you have those very first tough 4 weeks. Then you get Kentucky, which is going to be a bit of a step. Then you got Ole Miss, which is again hard. But after Ole Miss, Jake, you close. And I'm going to say this is relatively nice and heavy emphasis on the relative, right? Because to most teams, this would be its own sort of, very tough murders kind of gauntlet. But compared to that first half of the season, I think it is easier. You're going to finish with Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, and UGA. Not a bad team amongst the bunch. As we said, Auburn, 2 or 3 Omahas. Mississippi State, Natty Champs 2 years ago. Alabama, a program on the rise. That is the only one of these that's actually ranked in the preseason. But they are not top 10 stalwart perennial powers. So,
yeah.
To your point, Jake, if you want to start winning as you enter postseason play, at least from that point, the schedule does line up kind of nice, including ending with Georgia, who I have no idea what Georgia's going to be at that time. They're full of freshmen and transfers, and we'll see. But as tough as the beginning is, at least a bit of a friendly hand for the end there.
So I also took a look and went back and looked at last year's preseason poll.
Yeah.
Just to see kind of where it stacked up. You still had 6 SEC teams in the top 10. You had Vanderbilt coming in at 2, Mississippi State at 3. So wild that they were 3 last year in the preseason, not even in the top 25 currently right now. LSU actually came in at 5. I don't remember them being that high. Arkansas came in at 6. Ole Miss came in at 8. Florida was 9. And then you had to go down to number 19 to find Tennessee. So, it to your point and laying it out, it kind of is what it is. Now, starting the season right here, would you rather be in that position, like you said? Would you rather, we got some things we got to figure out, but we know in the back end we'll probably be better because of it.
Yeah.
Win, lose, or whatever, we'll be better because of it. And then that's when we can really create that momentum going to Hoover and then regional. Hopefully you're hosting a regional and all that. So I'd rather be like this. I'd rather be – because in the softball side of things, this is how softball it is usually from the get-go.
Yeah, it's true.
You're going to go out there and you're going to play some very tough series the Clearwater that we usually talk about. LSU's not in it this year, but on softball side of things, there's Alabama, Arkansas, Florida State, Michigan, UL Lafayette, Mississippi State. All those teams are in that. It's hey, giddy up, get right into it. And so I've always been in favor of that. I think it gives you something during the offseason to really work for. You can't come in half-stepping. You've got to bring your A game. Maybe it's that small attention to detail there in the last 2 weeks as you build up, because you get reminded of, hey, if we slow play this thing, we might get too far behind where we can't be the team we want to be. And you and I have been in that situation. You've been in it even more than we played Mississippi State my senior year, and although they weren't a good football team, it was still an SEC game, and we knew we had Virginia Tech coming very soon, so we knew we had to come into that season. I mean, you've opened up with Oregon and other teams, and so that offseason, you know what I'm talking about, it does feel different when you start out and you look at the schedule and hey, man, the first 5 weeks, my God.
It's a it's a very literal and very easy totem to kind of ward off complacency, right? I have very vivid memories of doing summer workouts, and you want to stop, you want to take it easy, and then pestering my head you got Oregon in a month or whatever. So yeah, I like this as well. You will be forged in the flames of the early season. We'll see what emerges, and then you'll have a chance to kind of flex more at the end. It's going to be an awesome baseball season. Let's freaking go. Starting this Friday. We'll talk to Jay Johnson as well later on in the week as we'll get Coach Johnson hopefully set up with a weekly. Can't wait.